God gave the prophet Jeremiah a difficult assignment, one that made him pretty unpopular. His ministry began under the reign of one of Judah's most godly kings, King Josiah. After Josiah died, Jeremiah endured the reigns of 3 of Josiah's sons and one of his grandsons, all of whom did evil in the sight of the Lord, the Bible says. Jeremiah was a prophet in Judah during all 3 of Nebuchadnezzar's sieges of Jerusalem. He witnessed the destruction of his beloved city, and he continued to shepherd the people who were not taken as captives to Babylon, staying with them and praying for them, even when they disobeyed God's clear instructions. What made Jeremiah so unpopular was his consistent message. He preached that the way that God wanted the people of Judah to respond to Nebuchadnezzar's attack was to go out to meet Nebuchadnezzar when he arrived and surrender to him. People insisted that that could not possibly be the word of the Lord, and some even accused Jeremiah of being paid off by Nebuchadnezzar. It was under the rule of King Zedekiah, the very last king of Judah before the captivity, that a few of the leaders in Jerusalem decided that they'd had enough of Jeremiah's messages. This is found in Jeremiah chapter 38. Together, they went to Zedekiah and asked for his permission to have Jeremiah put to death for preaching such a negative, discouraging message. The wishy-washy King Zedekiah said, "Oh, that's up to you. I don't have the authority to stop you." So these men had Jeremiah arrested, and even though they'd been given clearance to execute Jeremiah, they didn't have the courage to carry it out. It was true that the people didn't care for Jeremiah's message, but they believed he was a man of God, and executing him would have been a very unpopular move. So instead, they secretly took Jeremiah to a dungeon, a deep pit, out in the courtyard of the prison. They put a rope around him beneath his arms, and they let him down into that pit. At the bottom of the pit was nothing but mire, deep mud and filth. One historian said that Jeremiah sank in the mire up to his shoulders. They left him there to die. Imagine being forsaken in a deep dungeon like that. No food or water, just mud and sewage. And after you sink into the slop at the bottom of the pit, they cover up the hole and leave you there in total darkness. And what was your crime? You spoke the message that God told you to speak. It's believed that that was what Jeremiah was referring to in Lamentations 3 when he wrote, "Mine enemies chased me sore, like a bird, without cause. They've cut off my life in the dungeon, and cast a stone upon me. Waters flowed over mine head. Then I said, I am cut off. I called upon thy name, O Lord, out of the low dungeon." Word got around in the king's house as the servants passed along the latest gossip. "Did you hear about Jeremiah the preacher? He was arrested, and they put him in that horrible dungeon of Malchiah." To most of the servants who heard the talk, it was just another reason to shake their heads and lament about how bad things had gotten. But there was one man who just couldn't let himself ignore the news. An Ethiopian named Ebed-Melech. When Ebed-Melech heard that the prophet Jeremiah had been arrested and secretly put down in that pit, he knew he had to take action. While others might have said, "What can I do? I'm just a servant," Ebed-Melech said, "I can't do nothing." It wasn't his job to care, and he may have even been risking his life by stepping out of line like this. But he just decided he had to try. King Zedekiah was seated in the gate of Benjamin, carrying out his royal responsibilities. Ebed-Melech left his post in the king's house and hurried out to the king and pleaded, "My lord, the king, some wicked men have taken the prophet Jeremiah, dropped him in a filthy dungeon, and left him there to starve." The king's attitude was very different this time. He said, "Take 30 men with you and go right away and pull him out." Ebed-Melech did as the king commanded. He took some men, grabbed a bunch of rags, went out to the dungeon, opened the lid, threw down the rags and some ropes, and said, "Jeremiah, we've come to get you out. Put these rags and ropes under your arms, and we'll pull you up." Jeremiah did as Ebed-Melech said, and the men pulled him to safety. The actions of Ebed-Melech saved the life of the prophet Jeremiah. The next chapter, Jeremiah 39, describes a tragic scene. Nebuchadnezzar makes his final siege of Jerusalem. Instead of obeying the word of the Lord, King Zedekiah and his family try to escape. Nebuchadnezzar's men track them down. They kill Zedekiah's sons right in front of him, and then they put out his eyes. They burn the king's house, destroy the city, and break down the walls. The destruction that Jeremiah had warned of for years came to pass. But right after that horrible scene is described, we read God's instructions to Jeremiah. "Go and speak to Ebed-Melech the Ethiopian, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, Behold, I will bring my words upon this city for evil and not for good, and they shall be accomplished in that day before thee. But I will deliver thee in that day, saith the Lord. And thou shalt not be given into the hand of the men of whom thou art afraid. For I will surely deliver thee, and thou shalt not fall by the sword, but thy life shall be for a prey unto thee, because thou hast put thy trust in me, saith the Lord. Ebed-Melech, a servant, a nobody, risked his life to save God's prophet. And God repaid Ebed-Melech by saving him from the destruction of Jerusalem. Christian, God has great deliverances prepared for you. Stay the course.